Hey gang, we are in London, England, and we are at the city cemetery, the big city cemetery, London City Cemetery and Crematoria. And we're going to look for the grave of a woman by the name of Diamond Annie. Well, that's her nickname. Now, we're not going to find her grave, and I'm going to explain why. And by the way, this is where the victims, well, two of the victims I know of Jack the Ripper were buried. Catherine Eddowes, Marianne Nichols, and that was the Aaron, Mr. Aaron. They just found out who he was through DNA. We did an episode on that. Not sure if that's come out yet, and if it hasn't, you'll see it soon.
Thing I do, I'll clip the lady's ears off. I'll keep my word. I'll see you ripped up.
But what happens to these graves? Why can't we find where they're buried? Well, it's been the tradition here and many parts of London and other parts of the country where you leave the grave for 75 years or so and then you dig it up, or you dig down to it and you put another body in. The graves are reused. I don't know if they're still doing that today, but a lot of these old graves we're going to be looking at, some of the old graves and most of the unmarked graves, that happened. So I'm going to tell you the story, and we're just going to look at an older section here that looks interesting, and we'll see what we can find as the train goes by. We got to have our train, right? Or it wouldn't be the Faces of the Forgotten channel. Yeah, Diamond Annie was her name. And it's quite a story. We'll just call her the shoplifter extraordinaire. So it was 1898. Of course, her real name, Alice Elizabeth Black. And she was born in the Lambeth Workhouse Hospital. Her father's name was Thomas Diamond, and her mother's name was Marianne Alice Black. The family was poor. Father Thomas had at least 3 criminal convictions, so you know how he was raising those kids. One of his criminal convictions, by the way, was interesting. It was for assault on the son of the Lord Mayor of London. So he was a little bit infamous. He was at a political meeting and he punched the guy in the head right through a pane of glass. Cut him up pretty bad. So it all started in 1912 when little Alice Diamond was just 14 years old. She was caught with her friends stealing chocolate. And that's where the criminal career was born. By 1915, Alice, turning 17, had already been crowned by police and newspapers as the Queen of the 40 Thieves. She would from then on be known as Diamond Annie, as she took over leadership of a large and expert gang of organized women shoplifters, like I was saying. She got her nickname from wearing diamond rings on the fingers of both of her hands. And her gang of shoplifters, they would be later called the 40 Elephants. Now, the name probably came from the district that they operated, and I remember seeing the sign here, South London, a neighborhood area called Elephant and Castle. So I drove through that and I was like, okay, this is where she was hanging out. The 40 part is probably referring to the number of women in the gang. Her chief lieutenant was a woman named Maggie Hill, who was known for her outrageously hot temper. She was a mean one. But Diamond Annie could keep her in line. Well, it's because she was the boss. Now, Maggie was always a threat. She could blow her top at any moment. 1939, she attacked 2 women at once with broken bottles. One of them lost an eye. You wouldn't want to mess with her. Mean Maggie, she got a 3-year sentence for that one. But Diamond Annie, she was no pushover either. She was said to be over 5'8" in height, which was taller then than the average man. And she could deliver a punch most men in London would have envied. Now, the 40 Elephants gang of women would make these trips, these expeditions across the West End of London. They would dress up very stylishly and trick the shopkeepers. The shopkeepers had no idea. These crafty women would pick the most prestigious of stores, and they would steal goods valued at hundreds of pounds right out from under the noses of these shopkeepers. Now, how did they do this? Well, not surprisingly, they had special garments, those big dresses to hide and store the merchandise. And they would use clever distraction techniques to allow their teammate to stuff their dresses. You can just imagine. Diamond Annie's favorite particular plunder was fur coats. She also liked bolts of silk. Each time, and this is the funniest part, each time they would have a successful run, they would all gather in the evening and they would have a big celebration. Oh, look at the fox. Now, this is, I guess, what people do here, and I heard a complaint, and I am not hunting foxes for the camera, but they're very sensitive about the foxes here and that you don't disturb them, so guess which way we're not going to walk. And the gentleman here is letting us film. Very nice guy. I got permission in the field here. So we are going to, let's see, let's go this way. Don't want to get in trouble for doing that. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move locations. Then I'm going to get out on the street here and go to the car, and then we'll pick this up lickety-split. Okay, gang. Let's just stay on the street. And the people here at the city cemetery and the gentleman that, I'm not going to say his name, that let me film, was very gracious, and he was emphasizing the foxes. And I want to tell everybody, if you come here, especially if you're a photographer, you better get permission. You only have 2 people in here a day, and you got to stay away from those foxes. So we're going to respect the foxes that are back in there, and I want to get near them. They've got a lot here. It's pretty cool. So we're just going to walk along here a little bit on the road, and I'll tell you the rest of the story. So yeah, they'd have this big party. Funny, get raging drunk. Celebrate the goods for the day, the take, the booty. And there were many parties, let me tell you. They were also known, these women, to drive these fast cars. And if you stopped them, or you had a little road rage, they didn't call it back then, but they had that. They would get violent. Speaking of fast drivers, one of the 40 Elephants was one young Lillian Goldstein. She's pretty infamous herself. She was the driver for a man who was the infamous smash and grab robber named Ruby Sparks. And that was in between her frolics with the 40 elephants. She was tagged, Lillian was tagged by the press and police as the bobbed-haired bandit. She would say that she didn't like risking her life with the climbing lark, as she called it, the climbing lark. Instead, she suggested to her man to just smash and grab the jewels from the windows. Now, his first attempt was something like out of a comedy film. She would throw the brick, and she did, a place called Catchpole and Williams, well-known Crown Jewelers at 510 Oxford Street, but the brick just bounced off the window. So she tried 3 more times, no luck. But to the astonishment of the people watching, she would finally figure it out, perfecting the technique by using 2 bricks at the same time wrapped in paper. That's where they got the term smash and grab, by the way. That was from her. So, although Diamond, Annie, and Margaret Hill and the other elephants served prison terms from time to time, they believed the risk was worth it. I mean, after all, the alternative was life of poverty. You can't blame them. Diamond Annie never married, but had a relationship with a man named Burt McDonald. He was one of the leaders, the big man of the gang called the Elephant Boys. Again, same neighborhood. Mean Maggie Hill? Well, she would marry long-term criminal Alfred Hughes. She died in 1949 at the age of 50. Diamond Annie, she'd outlive her, that is, Mean Maggie, by 3 years. She died close to a place called 11 Marnock House in Southwark, April 1st, 1952. April 1st, April Fool's Day. Diamond Annie was 54. Yep. Well, I thought that would be a fun, entertaining little story, even though we can't find her grave. She's buried here. Her grave is probably never be found, but she's here along with a lot of the rest of them, and they should not be forgotten. Quite a story, and they lived quite a life. All right, see you on the next one.